Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 56th Chicago International Film Festival. My name is Anthony Kaufman. I'm a senior programmer at the festival. Excited to have you all tuning for our morning coffee talk, Trans World, Telling Stories of Gender and Change. I'd like to have everyone who is in the talk joining us. We're excited to have with us moderating the conversation, Nick Davis. Nick is an associate professor of English at Northwestern University and co-appointed in the Gender and Sexuality Studies program. His research and teaching work is in the areas of film, queer theory, feminist and gender studies, and 20th and 21st century American literature. His book, The Desiring Image, Gilles Deleuze and Contemporary Queer Cinema, theorizes new models of queer cinema in the historical wake of HIV and AIDS. And his developing book, Millennium Approached, Reframing the Movies of 1999, examines a series of aesthetic trends, reception patterns, and cultural preoccupations in US and world cinema on the eve of Y2K. And for 4 years, he was a contributing editor at Film Comment magazine. Thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'd love to see our other guests. There they are. Hi, Luchina, Sebastian.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Bruno.
Hello.
Before we get started, I just wanted to say that we have never had more than one film about trans characters in our international competition. This year we have 3. Again, this was no intentional plan, but just simply the fact that we loved as a programming team all of your films, and we're so happy to have them. So thank you very much. And Nick, take it away.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you to everybody watching live on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who I hope will enjoy this conversation later. Some of you may have seen one of these films already. I promise you after this conversation, you're all going to want to see all of these films if you haven't already. It really is a treat as an audience member to not only, as Anthony said, follow some threads from movie to movie and see this sort of collective blooming of trans cinema that is also in the festival because there was no mandate. Nobody was making this happen on purpose. These were among the best films that anybody saw as part of the festival. And so it's a treat to talk about it and also to think about the diversity and the difference, not only across these 3 films, but within these films. So thank you, all 3 of you, for your work in addition to being here today. I'm going to ask each of the directors to just say a little bit to introduce their own movie, because I'm always curious how the artists behind a film think about what is the sort of main idea or the center or the emphasis in what they want audiences to know. So I will start with Luchina Fisher, who's here with her film Mama Gloria, her first feature film, I think, as a director, having worked on many shorts and documentaries in many capacities. So we're thrilled to get to promote Mama Gloria, and I'd love to hear how you describe it for an audience.
Oh, sure. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And yes, it is my feature debut, which is incredible. Mama Gloria is about a Chicago legend named Gloria Allen. She's a 75-year-old Black transgender woman and activist who started a charm school for homeless trans youth at the Center on Halsted for those people who are in Chicago. That's sort of the gay and lesbian center, LGBTQ center in Chicago. And I see it as the story of a mother's love, really the love that Gloria's mother had for her in the 1940s and 50s when she was growing up, and the love that Gloria has for her chosen children. And it's driven by the love that I have for my daughter, who is transgender and 17 years old and about to go out into the world. And it's also a portrait of aging because we often see images of young trans people, especially in this moment, but we don't see a lot of trans elders. And that was something that was really important to me.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And next I'll ask Sebastian Lipschitz, the director of Petite Fille, or Little Girl.
Hi, hello, everyone. Well, Little Girl, it's the story of Sasha. Sasha, she's a 7 years old little girl born as a boy. And I met her and her family 2 years ago. and I wanted to tell her story through a year, her daily life with the family and also with the external world, with the school, with the dance classes, and just to see the reality of the life of a little trans kid, in France, in the province, which is not so easy because when the film starts, you see that there is absolutely nothing all around the family and the mother, especially, just to understand and to do the best, for her kid, and you can see that she's a little bit lost for so many years with these questions of trans identity. And so through the film and through this year of shooting, um, you can really see the reality of a family with a trans kid.
Thank you, Sebastian. And third, I will ask Bruno Santamaria Raso, who's the director of Things We Dare Not Do. Bruno, how would you like people to think about your film if they have or haven't seen it yet?
I think it's a movie about growing up. It is filmed in a very little island where I was giving the lesson of video to childs, to young people. And there was a guy a little bit more older. He was 14 years old, who was keeping a secret to everybody, to herself also. And she dressed as a woman in the middle of nowhere, trying to be a woman, but in secret. So while we stay there these 3 years, she was taking the courage to tell this to the world, to her parents, to her society. And yeah, it's a movie about growing up, stop keeping a secret.
So one thing I want to tell everybody who's watching is that these are such beautiful and precise ways to think about the three films in question, and that they're all so rich that one could imagine a half dozen other ways to frame what may be the entry point or the main idea for lots of other people. There's so much going on in each of these stories, which is why the films are such pleasures to watch. But I'm going to highlight a thread that actually came up in all three of your accounts of your films, which is the unusual pleasure, if you watch these three films in close succession, as I did, of checking in with trans protagonists at such different stages of their lives. And none of them are at the stage of life that I'm most used to seeing in queer and trans cinema, which is often sort of 20s and 30s, sort of mid or early adulthood, where people are old enough to really have a confident sense of who they are. Maybe there's a whole community already forming around them, but they still feel like there's lots of decades ahead. So I'm going to move through a kind of age ladder here, starting with Sebastian, both to talk about the challenges, but also the opportunities of working with characters or with people in these documentaries who become characters to us at such different ages, and also what that means as a sort of, in terms of the filmmaking. So for Sebastian, to be clear about what I mean, I'll start with the fact that you're working with an 8-year-old or 7-year-old child, I think you said. You've made several other films in your filmography that deal with trans protagonists, but not at this age level. So I'm curious what was required for you, or what was different or interesting for you to work with a character who was that young.
Well, for me first, Sasha is not a character, she's a person. I mean, I'm doing a documentary, it's not a fiction film. So, which is, I have a lot of responsibility when I do this kind of film, because they trust me so much. This is their real life, So you really need to take care of what you are filming, what you're doing. And in terms of representation, I remember when I did Wellside 20 years ago, the situation was very different, especially with the queer culture in France. It was, nobody really cared about it. Wellside was kind of UFO in the cinema in France at that time. But today, to do Little Girl as a documentary film, for me, it's a new experience, because the character, well, the person, Sasha, she's so young, but also very well protected by the family, the whole family. which has created a kind of shield all around her just to protect her. The brothers and sisters, the mother and the father, and you can understand with all this love that she has, and she's very lucky to have this, can really help her to assume who she is, and to make a try in the outside world, and to assume to be a trans kid, you know. But it's not so easy because she's living in a little town in the province, and she's struggling, you know, with her trans identity. Of course, the school is really, really difficult, especially the director of the school. I don't know. It's not director. You said the
headmaster, maybe, or
yeah, and also because she loves to dance all the time. She wants to be a dancer, and even at the school of dance, when she's having some lesson, it's also difficult because she's going there as a little boy, you know. So all the time she has to deal with this kind of double identity. Sometimes she's a little boy, sometimes she's a little girl. And when she's into the house, in the private, in her private home, she could be the real person she is. But when she's going out, she has to be someone else. And it's really tricky, you know, for her. And I was so amazed to see her, how she can, how smart she is. And she's very patient, and she understands what she has to do on different places, you know. And I'm sorry, sometimes my English maybe it's not clear, but no, it's okay. Okay. And also for me, I was questioning myself that if she was conscious of the act of filming, you know, and I remember I had a memory that the first time when we went into her room was a kind of secret place because nobody went there except her brothers and sisters. And so I asked her, do you think it is possible that we come to your room and to film you there? And then she said, well, yes, okay. And so we went there, and I took the camera and for like maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to be ready to film, you know. And I said, okay, now we can film. Do you want to play with your toys like you do when you're there? And she looked at me and she said to me, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, why? And she said, well, normally when I'm in my room, I'm just alone. And there is nobody watching me doing this, you know. So I don't want that. And I was a bit frustrated by this answer. But then I said to myself, that was so smart of her, because it was a way for her to tell me that she didn't want to act. She didn't want to be like an actress into the film. If I had to film her in her daily life, I had to film her in situation like that, you know, like in all her real life. But she didn't want to play or to do something fake. And so for me, it was a very important answer that she gave me, because it was a way just that she had the notion to be filmed, you know, and what she wanted to do and what she didn't want to do.
That's so beautiful, because I think one thing that emerges so strongly from your film is how early Sasha was aware of her identity. And they tell stories, her mother tells stories about her being 2 and being 3 and saying, I am a girl. And to also, so I think there's such a sense of sophistication and self-knowledge that comes through about Sasha across your film. And it's not just about gender identity. And what you're saying right now, I think your film is such a window into the real knowledge and sophistication that very young people have, that I think we don't always perceive in life, and we certainly don't always see in film. And I'll use that as a segue to Bruno. So you're collaborating with Dayanara, who's at several thresholds, again, implicating gender identity crucially, but also the sort of cuspness of an adulthood that may start to be lived more independently from her parents, the whole question of when and how or whether to come out to her parents, whether she'll stay in this more isolated town. So you're working with a subject who can sort of collaborate or work with you in different ways, maybe, although we're hearing that Sasha's quite an auteur herself. What was that collaboration like in terms of all the different things that Dayanara is experiencing in the moments we're meeting her?
Yeah, I think, well, when I arrived to this little island, it's very isolated from everywhere. It's like a mangrove zone, so there are a lot of drivers, and it's in the middle of nowhere, this place. So there is too much information, there is not internet, so yeah, the people is not connected in a usual way to the world in some way. They have also like another time. They are fisher people in this town. And also the adults are not in the island because they work very far away. So it's like a child place, all this town. And when I met Arturo, Dayanara, I met her as Arturo. And when I met her, I was curious, and I was I don't know how to explain it, but I get so interested in her because I saw she was so mysterious, and she was also a little bit how do you say this, like feminine in some way, and I was in a also internal process about changing or trying also to tell that I had a boyfriend for 3 years and nobody knows about that. So in some way, this space without adults and with some kids that were like so open, like Dayanara, I felt comfortable. So when I start to give lessons and show videos, then in this place I show cinema. With Arturo, I get just like a deep connection, I think, because of this, because we were, I thought, gay in some moment. Arturo came out to her parents at 12. So then when I was working here for 3 years, more or less, and during this process, it was like I think, connection when someday I was talking with the mother of Dayanara, and the mother was asking me why uh, why I have a secret to my parents, and I was talking to the mother of Dayanara, saying that it's difficult for me because I am old and I have been keeping a secret for too much years, and she told me the worst you can do for your parents is to keep a secret. So Dayanara was listening this interview that was making her mom to me. So that night we went to walk a little bit, and she told me, I don't want to stop. I don't want to. I want to stop keeping the secret to my mom. They know I am gay, but I'm not gay. I am a woman. I want to dress as a woman, and I wanted to do this transformation. I want to do it now because I don't want to hurt her. So I told her, and I filmed this. Of course, she understood I was making a movie, also trying to understand and to feel how to confront our parents, to confront our society in some way. And she told me that yes, I can feel that moment, that I think is the heart of the movie in some way. And I told her that, of course, if she wants to, at the end, don't tell this to her parents, it's okay. Also for the movie works because it's a very difficult process to tell this. So it doesn't matter if she do this or if she don't do this. And at the end, I am trying to say that we collaborate in a more than in the film. We were in some way like making company to long process about keep a secret that she was doing with her parents of wanted to be girl. And in some way, when, for example, it happens in the movie that she came out, it was so hard because the parents didn't know that it could happen in that moment. But at the end, I was there, I filmed some moments, and I tell them, if you want, I go out because I think this is a very intimate moment. I understand that you are reacting to this because of the camera. So maybe I go out, and the mom say, no, you stay here. you don't go to any place. So I stayed there at just until the end of this conflictive situation. But I think for not just for Dayanara, also for the family, they understood that my presence was important also for Dayanara, because she felt in some way like with company, but also they understand that was important for me to film this kind of process, because I was trying also to do this. And Dayanara was, when she did this, she was 16 years old, and she was coming out for the second time in her life. So it was like a very brave, very brave, because this is a little town, very with a lot of machismo and conservadorism, because it's very, as I said at the beginning, very long from everything, very far away from everything. So there is no so much information, and it's in some ways also a violent place. So it's hard to do this kind of confessions or to do this kind of acts. And I think they trust in me because in some way I was living a very similar process. So yeah, I think she knew all the time. She's older. She knew we were doing a movie. I think also in some moments she was acting, not in that moment, but she was very conscious of the camera. But also I think she accepted to be open also because she understood why I was looking for not just to film, also to live during the process of the movie. Yeah.
Thank you for all that. And it really reinforces something I felt watching the film, which is how often Dayanara is surrounded either by people much younger than she or by adults who are significantly older than she is. And there's a way in which the camera almost winds up feeling like the peer, that we don't see a lot of other people her age that she gets to confide in or have a relationship with. And so to hear that backstory, I think really, I can say as an audience member, it comes through in a different way, even to watch the film.
Yeah.
And speaking of consciousness of the camera, Luchina, Gloria, I love that so early in the film we see her receiving the award from Janet Mock and just coming right out and saying, I am loving this spotlight, which is something she said in the Q&A last night as well. So I think the dynamics, I'm curious what the dynamics of collaboration were. She certainly gives the impression in the film of being quite an open book to you, although I'm sure things weren't that simple. But I'm also struck, as other viewers of Mama Gloria I'm sure will be, by how Gloria at all times is interacting with fellow elders, is interacting with people who have passed, who, including her mother, but many other family members, including high school peers she hasn't seen in years, and including younger people. So it's kind of this multi-generational cascade of people with whom she still lives her life. So how did you work with Gloria, but how did you work with all those different, or kind of balance all those different communities that she still exists in?
Yeah, it was a challenge to find that right balance. And Gloria was definitely a more conscious collaborator. I love hearing Sebastian and Bruno talk about the backstories to their films, because as a mother of a trans daughter, it's fascinating to realize that I've navigated those experiences that your protagonists have navigated from the perspective of a mother watching my child go through that process. So with Gloria, of course, she is this elder who could be my mother, in fact. And I think what I saw from her was this possibility of what my daughter could become. That in a way that she's sort of my daughter's connection to aging. And so sorry about that. Phone call. Sorry about that. I think that was my daughter, in fact.
Her ears are burning.
Exactly. Gloria was this this wonderful elder who'd had this amazing life, so many life experiences. Clearly, she talks about how she was out from the moment she came out of the womb. And she's famous for saying this expression about the closet, that the only time she ever entered a closet was to pick out a dress and a pair of pumps. And I thought, oh my God, that's the line to really open the film, to really bring people in immediately to Gloria's world. And so I kind of had her, stage this opening of the closet. So in that sense, she was this collaborator. She was conscious that we're filming, that there is a camera. And yet there were times where it just felt like I was just observing her life, and she was very comfortable with me, and I was very comfortable with her. I think because of the connection of my daughter, but probably there's something more than that we just instantly understood one another. And that really allowed me to navigate these spaces with Gloria and observe them without, with her sort of losing the awareness that the camera was there. And what I was so struck by is that Gloria was this person who is out in the world, not only as a trans person, but as an elder person, right, a senior, that we filmed her going to the grocery store and interacting with people she met on the street, and in her senior building, which is LGBTQ friendly, having her monthly potluck dinner. And, she's sort of the center of attention because that's just who she is. And then she happened to be having her high school reunion around the time that we were filming. And that was so powerful because these were her peers that she grew up with and who knew her before she transitioned. And to sort of see them interacting now, and still for them to come to terms with, well, what does that mean for you to be transgender? And am I even saying it the right way? Mm-hmm. I loved being able to capture those moments, and particularly within sort of a Black world, in a Black community. And that is how Gloria lives her life. She goes to a Black church. She is very much in touch with her family, who have loved her from the beginning. And that's sort of a portrait of Black life that we don't often see. So that was really important for me, to just be able to show how loving her family is toward her, how loving she is toward the trans youth that she meets. And so we definitely had just all these wonderful opportunities, I think, because of her comfort level with who she is, and that she was well established in her identity. And so for her, this was a real joy to be able to have this moment, this spotlight. And even when her health took a turn for the worse, and she was in a very vulnerable state in her life, she still said, yeah, you should be here to capture that. And I was so grateful for her ability to be vulnerable in that moment. And she said, you know what? People need to see what it's like to age, and to know that that comes with aging, because I never expected to be here. And so for me, all of this is a gift, even the challenges that come with aging. It's a gift, and it's a privilege to age as a Black trans woman.
Thank you all so much. What you're saying, Luchina, and actually what all of you have said, remind me of a sensation that is, again, as different as your films are from each other, but also as protective as I felt each of your films was of being different internally. There's no one tone, there's no one point of emphasis. There are different sort of emotional ebbs and flows in each movie. One thing I really appreciated across all of them, and you all have spoken to it a bit, is that as how you as directors, but also your cameras, respect the privacy of these characters. We get such a multi-rounded view of so much of their lives, but I did not feel, as I sometimes do in documentaries, am I seeing more than the subject really wants me to? Am I feeling more like a voyeur than an audience member? And so even hearing as early as Sasha saying, no, I don't think you need to be in my room, you know, or Gloria, who does seem to present so much to the world and then occasionally has things that we don't need to hear every detail about. So because I so appreciate that, in Luchina, you mentioned the class reunion, which is one scene of people asking empathetic questions, but you know, can sometimes overstep into asking too much. That's part of why I value that your films balance what do we want to show, what can we teach an audience, how fully can we tell a life story without crossing a line or seeming intrusive. Were there other things that you told yourself as directors? I really want to make sure that I resist this urge that I see in a lot of documentaries, or there's this stereotype in the world that I really want to make sure my film or my depiction of my subject does not fall into. Or more positively, these are things about lives, but specifically trans lives, that I think get missed in a lot of portrayals. So I'm really intent on making sure the audience sees it. Any of you can answer in any order you'd like.
Well, I'll just jump in quickly because I was thinking about this recently because we had our Q&A yesterday and we were talking about what was left out. And I forgot that Yvonne and I went back and forth, Yvonne Welbin, my producer, about this one scene where Gloria's doing her makeup in the mirror. She's getting ready for her class reunion. And I loved it because it's also a reflection, or she's reflecting on the lessons she learned from her mother and grandmother about makeup, and that they were these great beauties. And you know, there was this wonderful line where she said, they didn't want me to look like an overly done drag queen. And if my makeup or my clothes weren't right, they said, oh no, sis, you go back and do it again. And I just loved that connection with her mother and grandmother. But Yvonne was like, we've seen that in so many films about transgender people, like that makeup, you know, that putting on the makeup in the mirror. And I was like, yeah, I know, but that's why I intentionally didn't put it, you know, at the beginning. But I really want to keep that. And as we kept going through iterations of the film, it was in there until the very last minute. I was still resisting, like I just wanted to keep it in. But I finally, something clicked, and I kind of heard what she said, and it also came at an awkward moment where it sort of took us out of the flow. And so I let it go, and I realized, like, yeah, that was the right choice for this film, because of who Gloria is, the age that she is, that she's very established in her identity. I didn't really need it. Now, I saw that in Bruno's film, and it made total sense to see Dayanara becoming herself. That made total sense to me. But yeah, that is partially why I thought of it again today. That, yeah, I feel good that was a right choice for me.
Bruno or Sebastian? Yep.
Yes, I think I haven't seen the other films because my location, but I think that because it's impossible because this is restricted to USA. But I was thinking that I think always there is a line that is very difficult to find the right position. What is the right distance to be intrusive or not? I think it's difficult to feel that. It's like an intuition or something that you have to ask yourself all the time while you are doing a documentary. I say this because also this kitchen scene when Dayanara came out, for me also give me a lot of questions. I'm not sure about the answer because I know that she has told me that she felt comfortable doing this with me because in some way she felt protected by the camera. But also sometimes I feel that it's a very intimate situation, and I understand why is the camera. I understand why I am there, but I'm not sure if it is right or not to film a very intimate process. I think it's very difficult. Uh, even this, I think that I try not to push anything during the film. For example, I didn't know what was the film about when I start. I just have a need to talk about something that makes you feel repression or about secrets, about growing up. And I came to this town to give lessons, and suddenly the persons appear and the situations and conflicts appear, and while I was there staying with people, I have a camera and I started to make a movie, but I never asked anything. It was completely like, it's not about cinema verite, that it was cinema verite, but it is not about this. It is about respect the situation that happened, even doesn't work for the movie in my head. Because I think at the end, editing, when we do the editing, we can understand why it works. Even I thought while we was filming doesn't work. I don't know if I am being clear because my English is not also so good. But what I was trying to say is that we allow that things happen in front of us, and we never ask for the things happen. But even this, I think, is difficult to understand if it's. It's good that I am here. I have this in my mind while I was shooting, but not just this documentary. All the time I work as a documentary, I felt this question: it's good that I am here. What is changing? I think, of course, Dayanara, she will came out to her parents someday, but I know that, of course, she felt a little bit of not pressure, but something about. She said, "I'm gonna do it now because Bruno is here." So that, I think, is yeah, it's good to think about this, about our position being filmmakers, because of course we push in some way situation, and I think it's difficult to understand like the right distance. But yeah.
Thank you, Bruno. And Sebastian, was there anything that you were especially determined to make sure your film did show or say, or would not show or not say?
Well, I mean, that was something for me which was a bit unique. It's because I couldn't have any references because I don't know any film with a trans kid so young, at 7 years old. So, no, I mean, for me, everything was quite new. And I think I've tried to put myself in an open situation because I just wanted to film her daily life and to see what reality can offer me. And in any situation. I didn't want, I mean, I didn't go there and wait for a specific moment. It's, for me, it's the experience of a documentary film. It's like reality brings you amazing things, that you don't, that you can't imagine. This is really what I love about documentary. It's, there is something so live and true. And with Sasha and her family, there was something for me so unique because there is all this love that they are connected in a very special way, probably because of the situation of Sasha. They have built something very powerful, a very strong protection and comprehension. Um, that for me was a kind of fairy tale in a way. I remember the first time when I arrived in the house, um, I thought that I was in a kind of fairy tale. It's funny, and even and after during the editing of the film, this notion of fairy tale, that you have this kind of little home, very warm with love, and the danger it's all around, and for me that was also the aesthetic and the way I've tried to build the film, like a fairy tale, for everybody. I hope that a little boy or a little girl could see the film and could see it also like a Disney film, but you know, the main character, my hero, is a little trans kid. For me, it's very important. It's not something, you know, for adults. This film, I did it for everybody. And Sasha also, I remember she said to me, I know there is other kid like me, and I want them to work the film because I know it could help.
Wow.
That's beautiful. I'm going to ask at least one more question, but I do want to prompt the people who may be following and watching on YouTube that if you would like to enter questions in the chat, we are more than happy to hear some of the things you're curious about. I want to ask you all one question about the visuals of your films, because I sometimes feel like in conversations about documentary, all of the craft that goes into the looks of the film, the camera, the choices about what we're seeing and from what vantages sometimes fall out because the subjects are so fascinating. And Bruno and Sebastian, I know you have extensive backgrounds in photography and cinematography before and alongside your careers as directors. So would any of the three of you like to talk about either a sort of consistent visual approach or something that's true across the film, or even specific images or visual moments in the film that you worked really hard for and might tell us something about your priorities as filmmakers in these movies?
Bruno, do you want to start?
Yes, well, I think, well, as I said at the beginning, I didn't know too much about the film. I was trying to live an experience, and I arrived to a little island where some little kid told me that there is a Santa Claus who flies over the island throwing candies to the kids, and I get in love with this idea. So I said, really, it's real? Yeah, it's real. So I stayed there until Christmas. That's the reason I start to give lessons, to have a pretext to be there. And on Christmas, the Santa Claus arrived and throw candies, and it was flying. It was completely crazy. And I get in love with this place, and I start to be there. So then, when I started to think about the movie, I wanted to feel this like not magic, but this like naive point of view where a little place where Santa Claus exists. So that was just like one of the things I thought about the image. I wanted to feel this kind of energy of kids throwing everything, running all around, getting to trees and going to water. For example, I made some like not Bible, but like some rules just to before filming, just to when I am there, do not think too much about the image, because when I am filming, I try to just get connected to people and to put attention to emotions and what I am feeling, not think about image, about camera, just like reacting to situations. So, for example, I understood that I want to be all the time at the same height, at the eyes height of the kids. I want to have just one lens, just to, if I want to be close, I have to move myself. If I want to be far away, I have to move myself. I just have a 35 millimeters lens. And we work with a post-producer guy, and he told me about something about deep color, and I was telling him all the time, no, I don't want to have anything big, no cables, no monitors. I just want to I want to be free as camera to go to an airplane, to go to water, to do everything with myself. So we were just two people all the time in the movie, the sound girl and me. So for me, it was important to make with the image something that can make feel the people who see the movie what we were feeling during the process of do the movie. I don't know if it's clear. So
Yes.
for me, it was like have a little small camera and very easy way to manage. It was important. And in the other hand, that to give like the energy of the kids to the image. And there is also some important point that Arturo, Dayanara, she was with the kids all the time, like in a very noise space, a chaotic space, and she feel comfortable with them, but she find herself completely comfortable to dress as a woman in a lonely place, in a quiet place. So we think something like in contrast. We have a lot of movements, a lot of noise, and then we have quiet situations, tripod, and more or less that was my approach to the image of the movie. Yeah.
It is crazy that your film is so gorgeous, and you're saying I was trying not to think about the quality of the image. I could think about the quality of an image for a week and not come up with one shot as pretty as every shot in your movie.
No, thank you.
I agree. I know. I just watched your movie, Bruno, and it felt like a narrative. It was so gorgeous, and like, you know, suddenly we're just dropped in this world, and you know, just going along with this story and seeing where it takes us, and I loved how I could see how you were respecting Dayanara, you know, where the camera, where you placed it as she is making this confession of her secret and asking her family to support her. And it was so incredibly moving. I think for me, I really wanted Gloria to be on this, to be at the center of her story, because she is a storyteller. Clearly, she is the narrator of her story, and I believe, you know, that anybody who is trans, you know, they really do have to be the center of their story. They have to be in control of that, because of what it takes to come out and be out in the world. And so for me, she was this like glamorous grandmotherly figure. And I was like, she, you know, she needs to be very old Hollywood. And so, you know, we took great care in how we filmed her interview, to be sure that she had this sort of central pedestal of, you know, where she could be, you know, the main narrator. And the color was very important, that she was this sort of bright, vibrant person, and loved her pink lipstick. And so that became very much a part of the color of the film. And even when she's out in the world in Boys Town in Chicago, you know, those pops of color of the rainbow flags that are hanging in Boys Town, the way she carries herself, she's so elegant. She, you know, wears this fur, and, you know, and just, you know, everybody who popped up in the film also seemed to be very colorful. They were wearing colorful coats or lipstick. And so that just became part of how we, you know, saw the film later as we were cutting. But yeah, initially it was extremely important to, you know, put her at the center. And so visually, that's what I went in thinking, that, you know, that whatever we do, she's always in the center of the film. And really, she's in every scene. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Since you mentioned the shots of her walking around the city, I'll just say that as a spectator, I so loved how recurrently we got to see her just moving through the spaces of Chicago and on the sidewalks, and times where you think, well, do you need the shot to advance the story you're telling? Not really, but I'm taking away a sense of a woman for whom this city is still her oyster. And as you said, this is an elder who is still highly invested in all kinds of public life. I felt the same way about how often your film shows us the sort of greetings and the hugs and the hellos as she meets new people, instead of just cutting into the conversation. And just, you know, we've talked so much about coming out today and the pressures on key moments, but that sense in which you're always representing yourself to everyone, whether you already know them or not, that it's always a kind of new moment to think about what you're divulging, what you're saying, how you're recognizing or not recognizing each other. So I love those visual choices as well. And Sebastian, how about your approach to how you wanted the film to look?
Well, I'm doing a lot of documentaries for like more than 10 years now. And because first I was doing more feature film, fiction film.
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to do with documentary, it's to bring the aesthetic of fiction into documentary, and just to create a kind of very cinematic aesthetic into documentary. That's why I use sometimes the scope format, and also the affirmation of the frame and the music, and also the way to edit the film, um, make you think of more of a fiction film than a documentary film. But the material of the scene are totally documentary. Um, but I like just to create a kind of tension between fiction and documentary into the film aesthetically. And so with Sasha, with Little Girl, um, I was very focused on this aspect, I mean, visually. Um, so that's why we have chosen to work with a cinema camera and a special lens, and with the 4K also resolution, and just to bring all the cinematic aspect that I was really looking for.
Mm-hmm. That wide scope frame you're talking about also felt to me as a spectator like such an invitation around a young girl who's waiting for people to fill it. There were times where that frame was so ready for the scenes when a whole team of family or the medical advisor suddenly are all around Sasha, and you see this beautiful group. But by the same token, there are times where people feel really lonely in the middle of that wide frame, and that felt poignant. Not every close-up feels lonely, but many of them have that implication.
But it's also political. It's like it's a way to use the tools of the fiction and to create this this feeling that these ordinary people are heroes, like actors in fiction film, because the attention that you bring to the film, to the filming and to the aesthetic and to the colors and to the frame, and the use of this, all these tools that you have in fiction film, create a kind of strong relation with the characters, and with the person that you are filming. And I like that. It's not a reportage, it's not a news on a subject. It's something more than this, and to transform all these ordinary people into heroes, and just to say these are the people to tell, these are the very important people to document. That's why also this is what I'm trying to do.
Well, I'm noticing that we're close to having to wrap, and we have a sizable audience, but a bashful one. So I don't have a question from our viewers to pass along. So just to bring things to a close, I just want to express gratitude again for, I think, how many people will watch these films knowing that they're coming into a film that addresses trans people, trans experiences. I think that people will learn a lot who see these films not knowing necessarily that that's what they have just rented or bought a ticket to, and will take such rich and complicated ideas away from the film. But I'm also curious, is there another conversation that you would love to see each of these films in? Today we're grouping them as documentaries that are all forwardly addressing transgender, but so much happens in each of your movies that I'm curious where else you'd like to see your film show up in a sort of public space, or what other kinds of stories do you think your film resonates with?
Well, hopefully we all will grow old. Right? And I think Gloria's story is really about aging with grace and joy, resilience, optimism, and that's a theme that everyone can relate to, and that we, all grapple with this idea of what it means to get older. At some point, it becomes more prominent in our lives, and if we're growing old alone, or what is our legacy? What are we leaving behind? These are all questions that Gloria grapples with in the film. And I think that's something for all audiences, honestly. And then I think someone just told me that they were reminded of their grandmother and the love that they had for their grandmother. This was a young person. And so I think at any age, we're thinking about aging and our elders, or, if we're younger. So I do think it also has that cross-generational appeal.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian?
Well, I really hope that little girl is going to be watched by the larger audience possible, because for me, it's about, of course, trans identity, but it's about also how is it to be different and to be the acceptance of the others. If you are not someone like everybody, it's like, because there is many ways to be different as a kid, and I remember myself when I was a little kid, and I was a bit different. I was not a kind of super masculine guy, and a little guy in the school. And I suffered in a way to be, kind of different. And so for me, the film, it's also focus for all these kids that are different, and to understand them, and just to create a place for them, and to be closer to them.
Thank you. And Bruno?
Yes, well, I think that the worst thing of keep a secret is that you feel so alone. If you keep a big secret, you feel alone, completely alone, your whole life, until you stop keeping the secret. And Dayanara give like a gift to the movie, telling this, and I think that the people who see the movie and they are keeping a secret in some way, they will connect about this, and they will understand, the heart that is terrible about society, about family, about a lot of structures that make us do things that we don't want to do. But also, I think it's a movie, of course, in relation to The Secret, but about growing up. And in that sense, Dayanara appears in front of me, and we share some situations. The movie, it's built with her, but there are also a lot of kids that they are going to grow up also, and they have to confront also to her parents, to his parents, to their parents, these little kids, and they are going to build their own story. So I want to say that in some way, we follow Dayanara like in a horse, and she's riding the horse, and she jumped like I don't know which it is that she jumped, but then there are a lot of kids around her, and I think the people who see the movie can identify, with this moment in your life when you have to cross this barrier, this line, this wall that is, which is the word like making oppression to you. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you all know we did get a comment from an audience member saying, I don't have a question, but I'm so grateful as a parent to be listening to this conversation. I need to learn and understand more. And I think it's very revealing that this person who made this comment did not specify which of your films they had in mind. And it's so plausibly all of them, which is another way in which I hope people find these movies. I hope the kids and the children, especially the ones feeling different, find it, but I also hope the parents see the work of parenting, but also the compassion and the flexibility of parenting that we see in all these movies. So thank you all so much for participating in this coffee talk this morning. And thank you to everybody who is tuning in. I think one of the, the silver linings of having a festival that's moved all online is that one thing I'm not hearing from my fellow ticket buyers is like, oh, drat, I missed that movie. You have not missed these movies. You have 10 more days to stream them. They are all less than 90 minutes. How busy are you? Come on, see all 3 of them, and enjoy the rest of the festival. It's such an important moment of feeling, I think, bonded, not just as a city, but this year with people who are in Berlin and in Paris and in Connecticut and all over the place, to feel like we are all still in conversation and responding to art together and having our minds expanded by artists who are generous enough to share their work with us. So thank you, Luchina. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Bruno. Please pass on everybody's best wishes to Dayanara and to Sasha and to Gloria and to Gia. And enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Ciao, ciao.